If you're interested in immigrating to Canada, this video is for you. Of course, you all probably know by now, we live in Canada and we explore Canada all year round. We love it here. And of course, we have two different backgrounds. I was born in Canada. My parents were also born in Canada, but my ancestry is from Ireland and England.
And I'm originally from Mexico, Mexico City of all places, the biggest city in the world. And I came to Canada in 2011, then I became a permanent resident in 2012 and a Canadian citizen in 2019.
Yeah, and of course we love Canada for a number of reasons, probably for the same reasons that a lot of people want to move here. We're often ranked #1 for quality of life in the entire world, and if we're not ranked #1 that particular year, we're probably in the top 5. And this is all thanks to a variety of things, such as a politically stable government, safety, a good public education system, good healthcare system, lots of jobs, and a variety of other things. Over the years, we've noticed that many of you have asked us how to immigrate to Canada, if we can help you with that, but it's definitely not our expertise. But we have noticed that, especially right now, the government is bringing in more immigrants than probably ever before, around 1.2, 1.3 million over the next 3 years. So there's lots of opportunities to move here. And for that, we're doing something new. We're going to be having an interview with a professional.
So for this reason, we invited Vanessa, who is the CEO and main immigration consultant at Gentium Immigration, which is a consultant office based in Montreal that provides services in English, French, and Spanish, and they have a 98% success rate in case processing.
And if there's one thing we've learned, not only in going through information on immigration, but even in our talk with Vanessa, is that it's definitely a good thing to hire someone like that, because there's just so much information and it's really good to at least know which programs you should apply for. So we're actually going to leave a link in the description so you can book your first consultation with Vanessa or her team and see the best way for you to immigrate to Canada. But without further ado, let's jump into the interview.
Okay, so we're on. Hopefully we don't have any technical issues and hopefully you can hear us well. So thank you, Vanessa, for being our first guest in this kind of video. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for inviting me. I love being here. I love the energy from your channel. So it's an honor being here.
Oh, thank you so much. So yes, the reason why we wanted to have this conversation with an immigration expert is because we have a lot of followers that love Canada and their dream is to come and live in Canada. So we thought that maybe we could do a video ourselves, but there's so much information. It's actually quite confusing. I was in the immigration side of the Canadian government and it's just so much information. So I hope that this video helps our followers to understand a little better the different programs that there are for immigrating to Canada, and maybe just like give them a little bit of an intro of what it's like to start this process. So first of all, I have here my questions. And my first question is, do you have any of like the main, what are the most common or popular immigration programs that you've used in all of your years of experience for people to immigrate to Canada? Is there some that are like the stronger ones?
Excellent question. Yes, there are very popular ones. So one of the most, and it really depends on the market, but one of the most popular one in the English market, it's Express Entry. So Express Entry is a selection system. And under Express Entry, there are different programs like Canadian Experience Class, Federal Skilled Worker, Federal Trade Worker, and you can also get some provincial nominations. And I already lost you there. I know I already lost the half of the people here because it's so technical. But what really that means is that they rate your profile. It's a point system, and they rate your profile according to who you are. So it depends on studies, level of education. If you have a master's degree, if you have a bachelor's degree, if you don't have a degree, then you have a certain amount of points for that. So then the second factor is work experience. How many years of work experience do you have? Do you have work experience in Canada? And it has to be paid work experience, and it has to be qualified work experience. Again, that's really important to understand, because it's not just any work experience. It's not I work as a waitress and I can get my work experience. No, it has to be, and I'm gonna lose you again, but it's called NOC, which is It's a code for your profession. It's a national occupation classification. So your knock has to be A, B, or 0, which means you have to be in a job that's managerial or technical or professional. So anything in that category, then that's fine. But if you're in lower level jobs, then that's not qualified work experience, then you're not eligible for express entry under any of the categories, right? So that's super important because people sometimes they think, I have work experience in Canada, I can use it, but really, if you don't have qualified work experience, you're not eligible. And another thing that's important is that there's a requirement there, minimum 1 year work experience, and it has to be qualified. The other thing, English or French. So we're in Canada, which is a country that has two official languages. And so if you demonstrate intermediate, which is B2 kind of level on English or French, then you're eligible for applying through express entry. And the last thing, well, your age. Yes, your age. As you age, you might start losing points. After 35, you start losing points until there's a point where you don't have any more points for age. But it's not the only factor, right? So you're looking at everything together. And now that's if I'm single. Now if I'm married, let's say you guys as a married couple, then we would evaluate both profiles. Is Matthew better in terms of like his level of language, his level of education, more experience, or is Karla better, right? So my job is to define that path. If I see that Karla's profile is going to give us more points, I'm going to put her as a main applicant, right? Because we're going to gain more points through that. So express entry is really, really popular. One of the things that you should know about express entry is that it does not include Quebec. So absolutely, if you want to go to Quebec, do not go through express entry because one of the
And why is
requirements,
that?
because Quebec it's a very special province, and they have very special things in everything. I live in Quebec. I love Quebec. I chose Quebec. I moved to Canada and I lived in Ontario, so I chose Quebec. But they are very particular about the way they do things, and so they have their own immigration system in which they choose the type of immigrants that they want coming in, because their main focus is to protect the French language, right? So if you see most of all of the programs in Quebec, it's going to have a very strong focus on you need to have French. Whereas Express Entry or any other federal programs, they're going to say
Right.
English or French. I'm okay with either one of them. Obviously, in practice, we know that if I'm in Alberta and I only speak
Not very
French,
helpful.
good luck to you. But and not very helpful. But in terms of
Yeah.
immigration, it's okay. If you can prove that you have one of the two languages, it's okay. So Quebec it's a whole different system. It's a whole province that if you want to go to Quebec, you have to focus on Quebec and you have to go to the Quebec government and forget express entry. So express entry is one of the main ones. And the second thing that's really, really popular is coming in as a student. And I think, Karla, I think you did that. I think you came to Canada
Yeah,
and you studied a little bit.
I was just an international student, but before jumping into this, I just have one question about Express Entry. And it's like, what's the main feature? Is it because if you're approved through Express Entry, you get like a permanent residence right away, as well as you're allowed to live anywhere in the country?
Anywhere but in Quebec. Yes. Yes.
Oh,
You
well,
get permanent
anywhere but in
residence
Canada.
when you land with a permanent residency. And the
Okay.
second amazing thing about that program is as it's called express entry, it is actually express. It's like 6 months process, which is
Oh,
amazing. It's
wow.
unheard of. If you do a
Okay. So,
sponsorship through family sponsorship, like if I wanted to sponsor my husband, it takes 18 months, 12 to 18 months. Express entry, 6 months. It's the only process. Amazing. But it is
okay.
competitive. It is competitive. It's competitive.
Yeah, because that's something that I read that it's you go to a pool of points, like a pool of candidates,
Hmm.
and the people with the highest rankings get selected, which takes me to my next question. How often do they choose from that pool? Like, is there like a, because also seems that it has a lot of benefits, as you mentioned, but also can be a little bit tricky. When am I gonna be selected? Selected. So when do they select? How often?
Every month they have rounds of invitations, and they have rounds of invitations in different streams of that program, right? So we have provincial nominations or federal skilled worker. Federal skilled worker has been stopped for a little bit because of the pandemic, and all the craziness around the world. But and then it's Canadian experience class, which means, like the name says, it, I have experience in Canada, which means I worked at least one full year in Canada. So it usually is every month. Right now, with the high volume of Canada is super popular at the moment. The government is overwhelmed. They have too many applications, and so they said we're gonna kind of halt it for a little bit until the summer, and then we're gonna start over because they just can't handle the volume.
Is that because of all the people who weren't able to come in the last couple of years?
That's the thing.
Kind of like everyone's applying.
Everybody's applying. They're backlogged. There is a lot. They're just very. They need to cut up. They need to catch up, and they haven't met their
Mm-hmm.
immigration targets for 2 years because of COVID and everything. So yeah, they're trying to find a way, but it's not easy
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of the times also we have restrictions in the home country. So it's not just Canada, right? So there were a lot of months, for instance, in Colombia, you were not allowed to travel out of the country. So even if Canada was open, then the other country is
Mm-hmm.
not open, or the vaccination place it's not open, and they don't have enough vaccines, or the biometrics is not open. So there
Right.
are so many factors in the middle for those two things to kind of connect and things to go back to normality, and so they're
Mm-hmm.
backlogged. Like it's not
Okay.
great right now, but
So I know that it's very early in the year to say this, but do you see like how long is it taking? Do you say like regular times are 6 months? How long should someone expect to wait for getting approved?
no, it's 6 months. Honestly, with
6 months.
once because
Okay.
there's a difference between the invitation to apply and then the application for a permanent residence, right? So when I get selected, I receive an invitation to apply. That's what I'm telling you right now. It's gonna take a little longer because they're trying to get caught up, right? But once I
Okay.
get an invitation to apply, that means I can apply to my PR right away, my permanent residence. And then at that point, really is 6 months because they're going to be filtering everything, and it's a point system, and there's no discretion of the officer. Like, when you're asking for a study permit or a tourist visa, the discretion of the officer is high. They have a lot of power. But in these kind of programs, the discretion of the officer does not apply because you're it's about qualifying. It's about having meeting the requirements. And if you meet the requirements, they just have to check that everything is fine. Karla, you said you worked
Okay.
3 years at this place. Let me see. You say
Okay.
you're 30 years old. Let me see. Like that's what they're trying to do.
Right.
All right.
It
Okay.
sounds pretty. It's funny. It was just at the beginning we were saying a lot of our fans have asked us in the past like how to move to Canada, and some have asked like why. I guess what the purpose is of hiring a professional, and it's, like we've only asked a couple questions, and it sounds
Yes.
pretty
Intense.
intensive, right? Like I think it almost seems like the best first step would be to talk to
It's
someone who can really like guide you down that path.
I really honestly I think I really do believe that it's important in any field. Like I always talk about my experience. I did my taxes like about 3 years ago on my own because I thought I'm gonna save money. Oh my God, it was the worst mistake I've ever made. And I paid a lot of money, a lot more than what I would have paid if I had just hired someone to do my taxes. So I always say, if you know how to navigate the system, if you speak the language, if you know how to do it, by all means, you can do it on your own, yourself. But if you really get confused, if you're in the government website, like Karla said, it's an ocean of information, and the problem with
Mm-hmm.
that is that you
Mhm.
click one link and it sends you to another one, and the other one sends you to another one, and nothing
That's
makes
true.
sense. And in that moment, then I'm thinking, yes, you need help on at least to know where to put your efforts at, right? Because there are so many programs. Express entry, we're talking about one program that really under that one umbrella there are a lot of other things. So if
Exactly.
if you know how to guide yourself, then at least, okay, I know that I have to apply through Alberta or through this program. Then I already know what to do, and then if I want to figure out how the application process works on my own, then that's fine. But at least I have my plan, and that's what I think. Although I will never do my taxes on my own again.
Yeah.
I
And
learned.
especially, I guess, also because you want to choose the most efficient program, right? Like I've noticed, right? I may be eligible for many programs, but which one will be the one that are most suitable and will be faster for me and my family to to get into Canada? Because this is another question that we got from our audience and that I also found confusing. Is like, what's the main difference between express entry and provincial nominee? Because even in the website, it says that you can kind of can combine the programs. Can you just maybe like clear like the main difference between the two programs?
Of course. So express entry is a federal program. It's really a federal program. It has been in existence for decades, and it's there to. It's really wide open, right? But provincial nominations, it's the province saying, I'm Alberta and I need this and this and that, and that's what I need. I need that kind of professional. So when you're in and some provinces they choose from the express entry pool. So when you're in the express entry pool, I see, well, I have a mechanical engineer and I need mechanical engineers because that's what I need in my province. So I'm gonna choose that person, and then automatically I grant them 600 points because as Alberta is nominating them, then they get 600 points. And if you get 600 points, you're in. Like there is no way that you're not in. Like you're in. And so that's one of the nominations that work with express entry, but not all of
Mm-hmm.
them do. Let's say British Columbia, they have. If you go to their website, they have the same programs, and it says express entry, and then the other one says non-express entry. So skilled worker, express entry, skilled worker, non-express entry. So that means that I can apply directly to the provincial nomination, which means that if I meet all the requirements for that nomination, that's great. I don't have to meet the requirements for express entry. I just have to meet the requirements for the nomination at that
Province.
particular province, and I can apply
Mm-hmm.
directly, right? So they would have their own application system. You have to go through their website. You have to apply directly with them. Nothing to do with express
Okay.
entry, right? So sometimes some provinces say, no, I don't want to. I don't want to choose myself. Like I don't want you to apply to directly. I'm gonna choose from the pool, and some of them are, I'm gonna have both options. If you're in the pool and I nominate you, you have to still apply. But I nominate you, you get 600 points. And the difference between those two things is that if you're going through express entry and you choose BC, PMP, and you put them together, then the processing time is 6 months,
Okay.
right? But if you do only the nomination, the provincial nomination, because for whatever reason you don't meet the requirements for express entry, which is the case for one of my clients, she's auctioning right now in BC, then she doesn't meet the requirements for express entry. She did not have the requirements, but she did have the requirements for BC PMP. So what we did is we went through BC PMP directly, but the process is longer. We're still waiting right now. Actually, we got a letter not to like a few days ago. Right now, she's probably gonna receive her PR in the next couple months, right? But now we're being in process for like about
Oh,
18 months.
wow.
It's
Yes, it
longer.
is.
So that's the difference, like it takes a little bit longer, but if you don't qualify for express entry, go for it. They're amazing programs, and if the province needs you, that's the way to go. So it's really need
Mm-hmm.
based. Like if the province needs something specifically, that's what they're gonna put in their nomination, and you have to navigate all these over 90 programs and figure out where
Yeah.
you fit in
And you
and
also
apply.
get permanent residence, right? With the provincial nomination.
Correct.
Okay.
It's the same thing. You're nominated to live and work in the province, and
Okay.
so the province does the first step. So they do the filtering, right?
Okay.
So that they
And
do everything, and then when it goes to the federal government, all they have to do is basically, which I don't understand why they take so long, but they just want to make sure that there's no health issues, that there's no background problems in terms of criminality, any inadmissibility questions, right? Because you met the requirements for the province. The province already chose you. So Canada is not trying to choose whether, or decide whether you as a professional qualify or not. You're already qualified. They're just doing the other side of the process, which is obviously you're gonna get a PR from Canada, not from BC. So they
yeah.
have to do their part, their federal part.
And is there a condition that you gotta live within that province for certain amount of time? Because let's say I was approved by British Columbia under the provincial. Is there a condition that BC says, you know what, you gotta stay here for 3 years or something? Is there some kind of condition?
There is nothing written on stone. I mean, there's nowhere on the side where you're gonna find that. Uh, Most provinces don't have that. Okay, but
Hmm.
but we're talking about intention. and if I say I have the intention of living in the province, I cannot just go get my PR and leave. If I do that, then when I do my renewal or I'm going to apply for citizenship, they're going to have questions. And their question is going to be, where was your intention? You said you wanted to be in BC. You told me you wanted to be in BC, but it turns out that you spent 2 weeks and you left. Now it's the same thing as like if you're sponsoring someone, right? You fell in love, you're sponsoring, and the person comes here and they leave. It's you're playing with the system, and that's not fair, right? So they're gonna look into that. But that's not to say that it cannot be done. If you have a valid reason to leave, let's say you were in British Columbia or Ontario, anywhere in the country, and you couldn't find work, let's say you couldn't find work, it was really hard, or you couldn't integrate into the job market for whatever reason, then you found a job. You find a job offer somewhere else in Ontario, maybe, and it turns out to be what you need. And honestly, it's a matter of like, I don't have a job, If you can document that you really tried, that you tried to work, that you tried to, make it work, then it's fine. But if you don't have anything to prove that you had the intention, then it's not that easy. You're going to have to prove that they're going to definitely ask questions.
Okay, so because yes, watch out, guys. You actually, as a permanent resident, you renew your status every 5 years. So you gotta super behave within those 5 years to get renewed. Otherwise, all that work you did in order to come and live in Canada will be pointless.
Lost.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if this is one of your questions, but I was just going to ask, like in general, maybe for this year, but is there any provinces that are easier to immigrate to than others?
I think right now it's becoming super popular to go to the Atlantic because all you need is a job offer, and the requirements of those programs are really low. High school diploma, 1 year of experience, 4.5 in the IELTS exam, which is the English exam, which is 4.5 out of 9. We're talking about like B1 level, it's not that high. So it's becoming very popular, right?
So 4.5 is like out of 10. Matthew, that he's 9. A native English, he's a 10. Okay, so okay.
Thank you.
Well, you're supposed to be a 10.
You know what? Those things are, probably in English, yeah. But it's my husband. He's French, and he went to take the French exam. He's French, okay? It's his first language, and he did not get. But nobody gets like the highest score in French. In English, he got better in English, and it's his second language. And he was like, "How is this possible? The French language is really hard."
I know, but that's how Matthew failed his Spanish courses. Like, he sometimes asks me about like subjunctive, and I was like, I'm sorry, but I never use that tense, and I don't know how to explain.
Because you just learn to speak it. You don't learn those things. Oh, it's so hard.
I know.
It's so hard. You know what? I learned English. I was 10 years old, so also I didn't really learn tenses or anything. Like, I just learned to speak like a child, and I can't do tenses. It's just so hard to what is subjunctive. Actually, I learned more when I was learning French, but anyways, I digress. The point is that it's not that high, the language level that they're asking in near the Atlantic provinces.
And which ones are the Atlantic provinces, so that you guys know? It's like Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland,
Nova Scotia,
and New Brunswick, which are like the most eastern provinces in Canada, and they're lovely. So we recommend moving there. We actually consider moving to Nova Scotia at some point, because I also read that they're expecting to double the population by 2040. Like, they really want to grow over there.
Yeah, and that's it. That's what happens. I think it's by different times and eras. I don't know. Certain provinces become more popular. When I came to Canada 20 years ago, Ontario was it. Everybody was going to Ontario. And then like a few years later, it was Alberta. There are so many jobs in Alberta, then everybody kept going to Alberta. And then it was Quebec is so easy to immigrate to. And then Quebec became super popular. And I think right now is the time for those provinces, the Atlantic provinces. And Saskatchewan is also really, and actually Manitoba too. Like the ones that were the least popular, they're actually coming out to be more popular right now and having really, really good programs. If you're willing to work, obviously, because it's work. I always say when it comes to immigrating, It's not one day to another. It's work. It's knowing how to take the next step, and it's like going to school, right? You learn what you have to do, and then you gotta get to it. You have to do it, and yeah,
So
those are the
now let's
programs.
go as an international student. So I'm just gonna share my experience because I did come as an international student, but just for 6 months. So actually, I needed to go back to finish my university. And I met Matthew when I came here. And then when we were trying to figure out how I could come to Canada with a work permit, I didn't went to an immigration consultant. So I couldn't find a way to actually find a work permit or a way to like move permanently to Canada. So I came as a visitor, and after a year of living in common law, he sponsored me as his common law partner. So please tell us how people can
Make it
maybe.
easier, I guess, because yeah, with she didn't in that year that she lived with me, she wasn't allowed to work.
No, like
So
my degree is marketing, and of course, because I was just out of university, I didn't have any managerial experience, and yeah. So tell us how people can come to Canada as an international student.
For sure. I love your story, and I think it's an amazing story. I mean, you found love, and you said, because a lot of people move to Canada because they want a better life, and some people move to Canada because they fall in love. And
Mhm.
I think that's really sweet.
Yes.
They moved me to Canada. I didn't move myself. So it was not my choice, but I love the choice that was made for me because Canada is a great country. But I really love those love stories, because at the end of the day, when you fall in love with someone who's from another culture, you have to choose, and you have to choose where to live, whether it's Mexico or Canada. One of the two of you needs to get a passport in the other country. That's
Yes.
just guaranteed. And so it's sometimes I have people in my office, and they come as they're first dating, and they don't know what to do, and they're like, well, we don't want to get married so fast just because of this, and there's so many questions right at the beginning of
Mm-hmm.
any relationship that comes from like different backgrounds. And it always comes down to, guys, how much money are you gonna spend traveling back and forth? Like, make a choice.
yeah.
And so
Yes, of
i
course.
love i love those stories. And my husband actually is a product of that story. His mom is from France, and his dad is from Quebec. So
Oh,
he's a
and they chose
mix.
Canada.
And they actually went to France first, but apparently there was not enough work, or I don't know. They came back to Canada, and she loves it, and they've been
Mm.
here ever since. So
Okay,
there you
nice.
are. It works out for me because I met him, right? So it's good.
Mm-hmm.
So international students, yeah. So what we do for international students, the first thing that we need to keep in mind, and I think you guys have a little bit of an idea, is that if you want to study in Canada as an international student, you need to have the funds. It's very expensive to study in Canada. A normal program, not talking about university programs, it's gonna range between a college degree diploma, or 2 years, $9,000 a year to $20,000 a year, right? So we're thinking, if I want a study permit, I have to convince the officer that I have enough money to sustain myself, so pay for rent, food, everything, and to pay for my tuition fees, right? During the time that I'm going to be studying. So whether it's my parents who are going to help me with the money if I'm a little younger, or I have savings and I've decided to do this, then but I have to prove that I have enough funds, and it has to be in an account. It has to be liquid funds. It cannot be an apartment. And I always say, and I joke around, you cannot buy milk with an apartment. You need money if you want to go buy milk. So I always say that, and it's true. What they want to make sure is that you're not going to struggle when you're in Canada. So
Okay.
that's one of the things that I always point out. And it can be a loan, a student loan from your country, or from a corporation or a bank, anywhere. It can be a loan as well. The second thing that they're going to look at is it's your work, your travel history. Have you traveled before? Do you have a visa to the US or Canada? Have you respected the states? Are you in the current country where you live and you reside? Are you legal? Do you have a PR, or you're a citizen? What is your situation currently? If you're a temporary resident in another country, applying as a temporary resident in Canada, it can be a red flag for them. It's not 100% no, but it's already a factor that they're gonna be looking at, saying, I'm not sure. Where do you live? Another thing that they're going to be looking at is links with your country. So ties to your country. You have to have ties with your home country. So let's say if I have family in Canada, I have to demonstrate that the strongest ties that I have, they're in Colombia, my home country, right? That I have to go back to Colombia because I have properties, or because my kids are there, or because it cannot be my parents when I'm an adult already, because in Canada it doesn't really. I know in Latin American countries we're very family oriented, but in Canada, the officer is not gonna think your mom is a tie to your country. They're not gonna think that. They see you as a different family, and you figure it out. So it has to be something strong, like properties, family that depend on you, like spouse or children. And it could also be a job that's waiting for you, different things that we can use in that regard. And not everybody has to show this. Of course, if I'm 20 years old and I'm going to study in Canada, it doesn't make sense that I'm going to have property. I'm too young, like it depends on the person, but in general, this is what they're looking at. And the other thing, they want to know why you want to study in Canada. And you have to be very smart about this one, because some people, they have a master's degree in education and they apply for a early childhood education certificate. And it blows my mind, because obviously the officer is going to say, you're paying like 3 times the price that you would in your home country. You're coming to a whole different country. You can't work full time because you can only work part time as a student. Why would you do this? Does it make sense for your career? No. Is it higher education for you? No. Is it going to open new doors? The answer is no to all those questions. So you have to be really smart. If I have a master's degree, it has to be something that complements my experience, my professional career, that I know that when I go back, and I'm going to use Colombia because I was born in Colombia, but when I go back to Colombia, I'm going to get, better job offers. I'm going to get, or I'm going to build my business up, or I'm going to implement something in my current business. But it has to make sense. It cannot be the same thing that I already studied, but in a lower level. That doesn't make sense. Or the same thing that I already studied in the same level. Does not make sense. Okay. And then the question of the year, this is what you were asking me, how do you become a PR? So once you have a study permit in Canada, you're eligible for a postgraduate work permit after you graduate, right? So my suggestion is always to take a course that's at least 2 years, so that when you get that postgraduate work permit, you get 3 years, because that's the maximum they give you as a work permit. And the thing with postgraduate work permits is that they only give it to you once in your life, which means that if I take a course that's 9 months in length, then I'm going to get a work permit that's between 9 months and a year, and that's it. If I go back to school and I study a bachelor's degree of 4 years, well, good for you. I'm not going to give you another work permit after you graduate, right? Okay. So you have to be very smart. If you're going to invest all that money, go for the longer one so that you have options, right? And what that does is that you're going to have the option of working in Canada full time. And we go back to that full time experience that we talked about in Express Entry. So your job would be to get 1 full year of work experience, qualified, and then it has to be 30 hours per week minimum, which is full time. And then you apply for permanent residence through Express Entry with the Canadian Experience class. And that's just one way, right? So then you can go into all the different provincial nominations that a lot of them they have international graduates. So if you graduated, so a lot of them have options for people who just graduated, and they give you a lot of points. Like Manitoba gives you a lot of extras because you graduated from the province. BC too, they give you extra points so you qualify faster. So there are a lot of options once you have that work experience with your experience as a student, and that's how you go to PR.
But as well is specific, right? Specific professions, So
No,
like if no, oh,
no,
okay,
it can be anything as long as it's qualified work experience. Knock A, B, or zero, because Express Entry does not discriminate. You can work as a manager in a store, but you're a manager. That's good enough for them, you know? Or you can be a manager in a restaurant. As long as you're in a managerial position, then you're okay. But if you're a waiter or waitress, then that's not qualified. Then that's the problem is that it's not skilled work. If it's not skilled work, then you don't qualify for the program. But it doesn't have to be a specific occupation, no.
But as well is specific, right? Specific professions,
No,
So like if no,
no.
oh,
It
okay.
can be anything as long as it's qualified work experience, not A, B, or zero. Because express entry does not discriminate. You can work as a manager in a store, but you're a manager. That's good enough for them, you know? Or you can be a manager in a restaurant. As long as you're in a managerial position, then you're okay. But if you're a waiter or waitress, then that's not qualified. Then that's the problem is that it's not skilled work. If it's not skilled work, then you don't qualify for the program. But it doesn't have to be a specific occupation, no. And another thing that's really cool about Canadian Experience Class is that you can apply even if you're in Quebec, as long as you prove that you have the intention of leaving Quebec. You cannot stay. You can apply from Quebec. You can have studied in Quebec and have worked in Quebec and qualify in Quebec. But you have to be like, look, I'm trying to buy property. I'm trying to work in Ontario. I'm trying to do this. You have to prove that you have the intention of leaving. And my suggestion is like you actually have to leave because really they're gonna check, and whether it's not now or later, you're gonna have to answer questions.
So now I have another question from one of our followers is if there's any preferences for Commonwealth countries.
No.
No? Okay.
The
Well, I guess
only
your their
country,
advantage will be maybe that the language, of course, if you're from Australia or from the UK.
And I think they also probably have like a partnership where you can come like work for a year or two, right? Even if you're
right?
not intending
You
to
you
immigrate.
have you have a little, but that it's not just for them. That's working holiday visas. They have like 34 countries in there, and it's not just for
Okay.
those Commonwealth countries. So, but yes, they do have one. But the only country that does have an advantage is France, and they have an advantage in Quebec. So if you want to study in Quebec as a French person, you can study paying really low rates. You're not paying as an international student. So that really you pay as a Canadian. So that really lowers down a lot of that, tuition fees. And also, of course, you have the language as well. So for French, they have a little bit more of flexibility. But other countries is really the same because it goes through the same pool, which is great. I mean, I personally think that what distinguishes Canada, and it's like the lack of, that would be discrimination, right? Like positive or
Right.
negative discrimination, it would be discrimination. And in
Mhm.
other countries, they do use that. They have the good countries and the bad countries, and I personally believe that it's not fair. So I'm glad that they don't have
Yeah.
that.
Right.
Okay. Then another question, and this is something because let's see for the general public. I mean, especially in countries in Latin America, a lot of people don't have the money to really like come and study a program, right? Some of them they don't even have like a strong. Well, of course, they don't have experience in Canada because maybe they've never been in Canada, and for that you need to also be eligible. So let's say that you don't have too much experience, you're not a skilled worker or trader, you don't have too much money. Is there a way that they can, because now I've heard that, as you said, like many provinces, maybe it's as easy as find a job offer. Is there a way that people can look for jobs, and what kind of permit do they need to be looking for to actually look for these opportunities to come to Canada?
So there are different ways. I mean, yes, it gets a little bit trickier. I'm not gonna lie to you. Of course, like if you don't have the money, if you don't have the language, like the less of these requirements you have, the harder it gets, right? But there are options in terms of work. Employers can want your expertise and your talent, and they can sort of sponsor you, if you will, but not really for permanent residence, but to come and work as a temporary worker. And in that case,
Mhm.
you're going to be building that experience, and so that would help you in a way, right? But there are also programs in specific cities, like in Manitoba there is a city called Morden, and in this city there is a specific, they have their own immigration program. It's amazing, I love it. And their program is for welders. So if you're a welder and if you have experience minimum of 2 years, the language level is not high, then it's a program directly to PR. So there are options, but you have to be resourceful. Again, if we go back to Atlantic Immigration Program, another program that the levels of everything, they're really low. So yeah, it's possible,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to find the jobs. And how do you find the jobs? You have to either you get really acquainted with all the information, or you hire someone and you ask them, very specific questions for these programs, or you go through each of their websites because they have everything there. It's just hard to understand when you're not really in this,
Mm-hmm.
like in the field, if you will, because it's so much information. But they have everything. If you see, like, for instance, immigration, Atlantic Immigration Program, each of the provinces they have their own list for all the employers that are designated by the government to hire from abroad and give you PR. So all you have to do is go and look at that's the way I do it, right? Go look at this list and call them. See what matches your experience. Call them, put yourself out there. A lot of my clients have done that, and they get those job offers. And then of course the immigration process is on you, which costs money. You have to pay for your PR. You have to have settlement funds. So there's always something that you're gonna have to pay. It's not gonna be
Mm-hmm.
as high as you're going to study, but yes, you're gonna have to pay something. It's a costly process,
Yeah, for sure.
just for
If you
your
were to put
PR,
a
you have to pay
price,
for it.
if you were to put a price, I know that you mentioned some of the funds that you need to have as an international student, but like if you were to put like a general amount of how much people should have in their bank accounts in order to immigrate to Canada, is there
An amount.
an amount that you can?
The thing is that it depends on the person, right? So if it's one person and you're going to study, I would say at least 35,000 Canadian. See, if it's one person and you want to go study. Now if it's me, my husband, and my 2 kids, now we're 4 people. I have to make sure that I can feed my kids, that I can feed my husband. I know he's going to have a work permit because I'm studying, but I cannot tell that to the government. I cannot be like, listen, officer, it's okay. My husband is going to work when I get there. No, they want to make sure that we're going to be okay. Right. So at that point, I have to count the 2 kids, I have to count my husband, I have to count myself, and then my tuition fees. Then it's going to go, 45, 50 $50,000 that I have to have in my bank account, and that's lowballing it, right? Like I'm trying to be, you know, affordability, right? But if I want to go and live in the most expensive city in Canada, I want to go to Vancouver, I want to go to the best university, you're gonna have to put that price up, because an apartment in Vancouver is not the same as an apartment in, I don't know, London, Ontario. It's definitely not the same. So you have to think about those nuances as well. And there are programs that you don't need any money. If an employer decides to hire you, you don't need any money. The employer is gonna pay for everything, but you have to find that employer, right? They have to.
Okay.
They're gonna pay for everything, and then your job is to really be a good employee, make them fall in love with you. So even if you don't have a skilled work, like if they hire you for something lower, if you make them fall in love with your work, then when they're gonna renew that contract, they might be able to give you a managerial position, which means that next year you're gonna be able to actually qualify for PR. So there are options, but you have to be resourceful. So websites that you can find jobs, Job Bank, they have a lot of jobs where they have LMIA approved. So that means that employers are already, looking for these employees and willing to do the immigration part. Indeed, it's always a good site as well. But also, each of the provinces, they have their job website kind of thing. So
Okay.
that's where I would look, and yeah,
Okay.
try. If you don't try, if you don't knock doors, I think nobody's gonna open. But if you start
Yeah, for sure.
knocking, then something's gonna happen,
Okay.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And my last question, I'm sure that probably our followers are gonna have a lot of questions after this interview, but I just have one last one. Is there an age limit to immigrate to Canada? Like if you're over 50, no way. Even you have the skills
If you're
and
not, if you're
experience.
97, no chance.
If you're in the retirement age, I don't know. Just a question.
Obviously, at that, yeah. I mean, there's no age limit, There's no age limit, but you have to be sensible, right? Like at some,
Mm-hmm.
like after 60 years old, the officers are gonna be a little bit more wary of thinking, I'm gonna approve this or not. Is this merely like only for you immigrating? How is this gonna help my economy? Because at the end of
Yeah.
the day, I always tell them, and I always tell people, Canada is not nice. It's not about being nice. This is a plan for the next 50 years, the next 100 years of Canada, and what they're looking for is talent. It's someone who's gonna come and invest and join the job market and really move the economy. Yes, of course, you're going to get something in return, a country with a lot of benefits and a lot of beautiful things. But it's not just a favor. Like they need this. We need this to grow as a society. And because of that, it has to make sense, right? Like if I'm almost retiring, how much do I give back to Canada? Not a lot, right? So at that point, it's a little harder. Maybe by investment. I don't know. There might be another option, but it's a little bit further away. Now, if you have a beautiful, wife or husband that's younger than you, maybe they can be the main applicant. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. All
Or you can
right.
get
So that's
married.
what you got to do.
Well, Vanessa, thank you so much for answering all the questions. Really, really, I think that this has been very helpful for a lot of our followers whose dream is to come to Canada. And can you please tell us where they can find more information about Gentium Immigration and what will be the first step that they should do towards their dream to come to
And
Canada?
also, maybe for more information, I think you offer like a
Consultation.
like a consultation. I don't know if that would be the best thing
The
for them to
first
do
step.
first, but
Mhm.
Correct. So I think that the first step, and no, I don't think, I'm sure, is that consultation. Why? Because it's a diagnosis, right? I don't give contracts. Let's say, Karla, you want to come to Canada, you want to study. So, Vanessa, I know I want to study. You send me a contract. I don't do that because I don't know if you have money. I don't know if you have enough money. I don't know if you have the admissions letter. I don't know. I don't know what you have, but I don't know what you don't have. If I give you a contract, it's irresponsible because I have no idea what I can offer you, right? So the first step for sure is a consultation in which we do an evaluation of the both profiles, if it's a couple, if it's a person by themselves or a family, and then we see what is the next step. Is it through study that I'm going to go to Canada, or no? Look, you have a great profile, express entry with a nomination. That would be the best way to go, and then we make that decision together. And then when the person makes that decision, then I send the contract, and when we start working, so we do the whole representation. That means that we deal with the government, we deal with the forms, we deal with the paperwork. All you have to do is give us your documents because we don't have them, but that's it,
Mhm.
right? So we take care of everything, which is very holistic. That's the way I want to call it. And how do you get in touch with us? We have a website, so it's gentiumimmigration.com. We also have Instagram. We try to make it very informative. It's building up because our main, as you guys know, our main Instagram account is in Spanish, so we're now converting everything in English, and so it's gentium.immigration.en for English. And yeah, that's where you can contact us, and you guys can also find our phone number in our website, and we're in Montreal. Any questions you may have, we're happy to help.
Yeah, and we're
awesome.
also gonna leave a link in the description so you guys can book your consultation for the first time. I guess it's always for the first time, but anyway, your consultation in order to know better how to come to Canada. Well, thank you so much, Vanessa, and well, I guess we're gonna probably be talking again if our followers have more questions about specific programs. But thank you so much.
No,
And
I
if
love being
anyone
here.
watching this goes through the consultation or eventually becomes a citizen, it'd be awesome if you let us know. It'd be kind of cool to
Yeah.
see
It's
how many of our followers actually make their way here.
It's amazing. It's such a great feeling. I think it's one of my favorite things when I receive all the emails, right? I'm the main consultant. So I'm the main person who receives everything in the company. And when I get those approvals and PRs, I remember the day I became a PR. And it fills me with joy because I know it's a dream for a lot of people and it's a new beginning. And it's not to say that we're going to leave our country behind. I'm as Colombian as I was 20 years ago, and I'm going to be always, but now you have a second home, and you have this home that you chose and that you love and that you nurture, and that's just, I think, is magical. yeah, I get
Oh,
emotional.
yes, it gives me chills.
I
Maybe you
know.
won't understand that.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it
No.
is perfect words. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you guys soon.
I don't know about you guys, but this interview was super helpful. She answered a lot of my questions, and I'm so sorry if I couldn't answer some specific questions. But as you can tell, the immigration process can be quite extensive and kind of like confusing.
Yeah, there's so much information, which is definitely why you should probably look into booking your consultation or hiring someone to help you through the process. I can't imagine doing it myself. And if you have any other questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. We'll try to reach out to them and see if they can answer them, or maybe we can organize another video in the future. And like always, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up, leave us that comment, hit that subscribe button. And of course, for more information on traveling across Canada, just keep watching this channel or visit our website at mustdocanada.com.